Welcome back to Violent Women in Film, where we dive into the complex roles of female characters who use violence, strength, and resilience to navigate their worlds. In this episode, we're kicking off a new series on the Guardians of the Galaxy films, starting with a character who blends lethal skill with a deeply conflicted past, Gamora. Gamora is a fascinating character. Raised as the adoptive daughter of Thanos, trained to be an assassin, she is a lethal force, often positioned as the team's deadly weapon. But her story is much more than just that of a warrior. It's a tale of redemption, rebellion, and ultimately, a search for identity. We see this complexity unfold across the Guardians of the Galaxy films and the wider Marvel Cinematic Universe. One of the most interesting aspects of Gamora's character is her journey from being a weapon to becoming a protector. In her earlier life, she was groomed to be an instrument of violence, but her evolution into a Guardian is driven by a desire to atone for her past. The transition highlights a common trope in films where female characters who wield violence must justify it with a moral awakening or redemption arc. But is this trope limiting, or does it add depth to Gamora's story? In scenes where she is building trust with the other Guardians, we see glimpses of vulnerability and humanity. Yet her violent nature is never far beneath the surface. Her past haunts her, making her interactions with her sister Nebula particularly charged. Their sibling rivalry, marred by trauma and violence, becomes a focal point for examining how Gamora's history with Thanos shapes her relationships. It's through these struggles that we see the emotional cost of her upbringing. But it's not just the violence between Gamora and her enemies that defines her. It's the internal conflict, the battle against the person she was trained to be. Unlike many male characters who use violence without much introspection, Gamora's actions are closely tied to her sense of guilt and the desire for change. This dynamic challenges the often one-dimensional portrayals of women in action roles, where they are either damsels or femme fatales. One of the most powerful moments in Gamora's arc is her confrontation with Thanos. Here we see a woman facing the person who has shaped her entire life. It's a moment where her anger and love are intertwined, and she is willing to take drastic measures to try to stop him. Her willingness to kill, even in this deeply personal context, raises questions about how we view female violence as opposed to male violence. Is she justified, or is she crossing a line? And then there's her relationship with Star-Lord. Gamora's softer moments, especially with Star-Lord, offer a contrast to her violent persona. Yet these scenes often risk falling into the taming of the warrior woman trope, suggesting that her violence needs to be softened by love or vulnerability. It's a common narrative in action films, but does Guardians of the Galaxy manage to balance this, or does it lean too heavily into it? So what do we make of Gamora? She's a character caught between two worlds, one of violence and one of hope. Her struggle to define herself outside of her past is central to her story, making her one of the more layered characters in the Guardians lineup. While she fights alongside her male counterparts, she is often the one who must justify her actions through moral reckoning. In many ways, she embodies the paradox of female strength in cinema, celebrated for her power, but scrutinized for how she uses it. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Gamora. Stay tuned for the next episode in our Guardians of the Galaxy series, where we'll continue to dissect the roles of violent women in film. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more, and let me know, what do you think of Gamora's journey? Is she a complex character, or does she fall into the familiar traps? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep questioning what you watch.